I tried, Joe. I tried to help you.
Hey, we the 101.
This nigga brought out the box.
Hey, let's go.
About to lose it.
Freedom. Freedom.
He on the ground, right behind you, man. I ran out of breath on that nigga. I was like, get out, nigga.
What?
We're moving on to the next matchup. The last matchup was we dove deep into that, and I figured we was because both of those albums are great in their own route. And so we're gonna move on to the final matchup of the first round. This one might get a little dark out here for us. I don't know. We got some old heads that might think different, but it is NAS ILLMATIC versus J.COLE Born Sinner. For your lyrical miracle guys, this is y'all matchup right here. This is for y'all. If you love lyrics, these two albums set the bar for each generation. So let's go, fellas. What we doing? Where we starting at? Who's jumping it off?
I'll start because, like I said, mine's gonna be short. Y'all may hate me for saying this. I hated this matchup, and here's why. Is because both both albums could be considered classics, right? But my question to each of y'all would be, and I'm gonna make sure I say this correctly. What do you consider a good classic album? Would you consider the quality of the album, the quantity of the album, or both? And there's a specific reason why I say that, but I want y'all opinion on that before I get deeper into what I was thinking.
For me, a classic album has three main components: production, lyrics, and B-sides. B-sides are what make albums for me. If your B-sides are up to par or even better than your singles that release, then I am a happy camper. Everybody has a different criteria of what they consider classics. But when I listen to an album, if your lyrics are on par and you got great production, and I can listen to you from start to finish, that means your B-sides are up par, I would consider you a classic album.
What do you mean by B-sides?
B-sides are your secondary songs, your songs that are not singles, the ones you put in to complete the album. To me, B-sides are what makes the album. So all those songs, even skits and interludes, are considered B-sides to me because they're not what drew you to the album.
Yeah, I can see that. I was just asking because a lot of people might not know what you mean by B-sides.
I understand. Because, like I said, singles are what draw you to the album. Unless you're just a fan of that person, you're gonna listen to it anyway. But for the conventional fan, your singles is what's gonna draw them.
Mm-hmm.
Then, what keeps them a fan is the rest of the songs you put on your album. And if I could listen to those just as much as I listen to your singles, I would put you in that category of the classic album. There's different tiers of classic albums for me. I have a God tier. I have a tier that's a top tier, and I might have a secondary tier, but that might be a little stretch. But if you got those three components: production, lyrics, B-sides, you got my vote.
I can piggyback off that, but I gotta add time. I don't think any album that comes out is an instant classic. If I can't go back and listen to the album, I don't think you're a classic.
I can see that.
Okay.
I can half agree with the time, only because another album by J.COLE, For Your Eyes Only. I listened to it all the way through, and I was like, I don't know. And then when you listen to it again, it's like, okay, then you start to understand it.
That is my favorite J.COLE album.
Yeah, so it just you start to understand it because it was a whole different flow. But you're right about time because if it's stand the testament of time, then it becomes like a classic.
A true class.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Jay-Z Black album that became a fucking classic. Oh, the DMX is Dark as Hell is Hot
Yeah,
became
you
a
can go back and
classic.
listen. Go back and listen to them anytime,
It fits any
Mhm.
time frame.
and they still gonna hit.
I can get behind that.
That's where I kind of differ from you because I'm like that to me is that would be considered instant classic to me. If I listen to Jay-Z Black album, I didn't have to wait 20 years to know it was going to be the same. Let me phrase it. I appreciate it more 20 years later, but when I heard it initially, I was like, "Oh, this is a classic." Like I knew it was a classic. It was no thought process to think about. I knew the Black album was a classic. Once I went through the categories of everything, I was like, "All right, I'm listening to this. I'm a couple months and it's still playing in my CD player. It's a classic." I just learned to appreciate it more with the time. But I do I agree with everything I said. I agree with. I just think there is such thing as an instant classic. I do think that you can find. It's in rare air. It's not often,
Yeah.
but you could find one. It's like that's an instant classic.
Yeah, but
I
with the J. Cole For Your Eyes Only, like he didn't say that. Well, he got his own opinion. He'll tell you. But with the J. Cole For Your, like I was listening to it from a fan perspective, and I was like, I got to take myself from a fan perspective and listen to the album again.
Mhm.
And then I re-listened to the album again. Just like all my critique shit, and it became a fucking great album. Like the Black Album. Yeah, it wasn't an instant classic for me, but it was a really good album. It became a
Okay.
classic when I can go back 10 years later. I mean, 10 years later, and release the shit and still know the lyrics to the song. That's when it became
I
a
could dig
classic.
that.
I mean, there's
I could
different
dig
there's
that.
different ways to get to that point.
That
Everybody's gonna have their way they feel how classes are developed. So there's no wrong way. There's no wrong way.
Okay.
But
So with that being said, I can tell you I actually like both albums. I love both albums actually, even though I just heard the J.COLE one, and I was really impressed with this particular album. I'm gonna start with him first because it's just more
we're gonna
recent.
do one album at a time. So you want to start with J. Cole? Go ahead. We'll start with J.
Yeah.
Cole.
Now, when listening to this, he had a mixture of lyrics, of production, tempo, how each song segued to the next song, segued to the next song. And I was like, okay, he was telling about his story pretty much throughout each of his songs. And one of the songs was almost like thanking Nas for how he came up in the game. And it was almost like you know, you helped me get to where I'm at. So I want to thank you with this particular song because he did talk about Nas in one of his songs. I'm like, okay,
Basically
that's
giving
I
him
dope
let
that he
Nas
flowers.
did
I
that.
let Nas down, but it was
Yeah.
more like it wasn't like a thank you. It was like you inspired me, but
Yeah.
Yes,
I
good
didn't
word.
live
Yeah.
up. I didn't the way I went about it. I didn't. I feel like well, Nas came out and said something about the fucking workout song, and that's
Mhm.
when J Cole was like, "Nigga, you made what you want. You want what you made. Like, nigga, we're going down and say, oh, shorty, you owe me. Like, you have to make radio hits." So I guess he thought J Cole was gonna go down a downward spiral, and he just took
Mhm.
that concept and he just made a song out of it. Like, all right, nigga, I don't want to let somebody I look up to down.
Yeah,
And
that's a
once they
good
did they
good
did
word
the
for it.
remix together.
He did, yeah, made Nas proud, but
Yeah,
he,
that was the word I was looking for more. It was inspiration because he did talk about that a lot in that one song. I was like, okay, that was dope the way he was doing that. He had him in mind when it comes to how he wanted to protrude with this album. And I'm like, okay. And he did have a lot of songs on here, and that's where I was asking about the quantity of songs because he had what 21 songs minus maybe what 2 3 skits.
it was a
I mean,
deluxe album. So 5 of those
yeah,
songs was on a separate CD.
Yeah.
okay. And I'm like, okay, this is a quality album here. You really can't go wrong with this album. And it bugged me because he was going against this particular person that had 10 great songs on his, and I'm like, yo, I it's hard for me to say who I would want to go with in this particular battle.
Well, let me interrupt you real fast.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, we're talking about J. Cole right now, so just stick on J. Cole
Hmm.
album and don't make a pick yet.
No, I'm not.
He beat me to it.
Yeah,
No,
so
but I, I, I was really, I was digging this album. I just didn't like the fact there was so many songs. There's a reason, but I'll talk about my pick when it comes to who it should have been against later in that. But
What are some of the songs that stood out to you in this album?
uh, actually, I have some saved. Um, let me see. Uh, Niggas Know, Crooked Smile. Actually, that was a soulful song with TLC.
Okay.
She Knows, Runaway, and Trouble.
Okay.